Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to Vibe Time with Geri and Psychic Roundtable tonight with my co-host, David Flowers. He's somewhere, right there. That side. Stephanie, Tina, and then Theresa, I got on the phone. Welcome. How are y'all doing?
Awesome.
Doing good.
Doing very good.
Good. Well, I think this is the second or third psychic roundtable I've had, I think, this year.
Second.
Second? Is it the second one?
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm glad you can keep track of all those. I can't. And I never really have topics to talk about, but I will say that if anybody wants any readings done, you can just reach out to the ladies out here, and they've got Facebook pages too, right? And just send y'all a message, correct? Because I know that there's a couple times when we've had people, that have come on and they're wanting readings, but I try to give everybody a break from doing that on a live show. Try to. Doesn't always work out that way. So what? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jerry. All right. I finally got you. I was trying to get your visual up, okay, so I could see what's going on here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good.
Hello, Shayla.
Hey, Shayla.
So what would our topic of discussion like to be? Because I have no clue.
Well, I think it would be fun to talk about experiences that we've had.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
A lot of people ask about that. What type of experiences have you had being a medium?
Gosh, there's so many of them, though.
Yeah.
Like that would be like a several-hour discussion.
I don't have that many.
Another show.
Yeah, David Flowers doesn't have that many. He's had a couple. Hey, you pick up on energies.
Well, you do, David, you do investigations, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you must have some things had to have occurred during those.
A couple of times, but I wouldn't call it psychic. I just call it lucky.
Oh, gosh.
David's the open-minded skeptic of the group. But he has had some experiences, because I tell people that when you hang around people like us long enough,
yeah,
it's bound, some of the stuff is bound to rub off on you. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, y'all are contagious.
Yeah. You get a bunch of us together and the energy just is
Isn't it phenomenal? Can you just imagine, like they did, I did go to a seance, and you think that it's a typical little seance with trying to summon ghosts, but this one was different. It was like an energy one, but it just felt really good because you could feel the different people's energies coming through just by being quiet and holding hands and then just picturing that. But you just felt the good energy coming. And then of course one lady moved and broke the whole energy chain, because she was like, I can't hold still anymore. And she broke the whole chain, but it wasn't a typical seance.
Right.
But it just felt really, really good to have that energy from other people that was, I don't know how to explain it, clear vessel energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds more like an energy sharing than a seance.
Well, that she called it a seance because at that time there were certain things that they did to attempt to communicate with spirit, but I was more into just wanting to feel the energy of the energy flow.
Right.
The people there were actually there to talk to spirit. how she set it up. But I'm more into, let me tune into your energy and let me feel that. That's
Right. Yeah.
me. But it felt really good. So
that's pretty cool. I would love to do that.
Yeah, I took a medicine wheel class one time too with Katie Bug. She lives out in New Mexico now, and she had this big medicine wheel in the back of her yard, just big boulders that she had brought in, but she made it into a medicine wheel. And then some of the crystals she had were big pieces of not rose quartz, I'm sorry, clear quartz to amplify everything. And we just kind of stood, in that circle, in that energy circle with that medicine wheel. And it just, gosh, it was just amazing. Her yard was amazing.
But that felt real good.
Yeah. It was just the way she set it up, so when you get like-minded people with that like energy, it just feels so good.
Yeah.
She had little crystals spread out in her yard. It was just cool.
I could see myself telling my husband, no, the boulders go here.
Yeah, I'll put the boulders over there. But it was just so cool how she had that medicine wheel set up. And then we each went to her medicine wheel garden, and then we picked out our own stones for our own miniature medicine wheel. I just thought it was cool. It was just a cool class. She was a cool person. Yeah. Now she lives in New Mexico with lavender fields behind her house.
Good for her.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing a medicine wheel class next week, going to one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We got to make our own little essential oils tincture, if you will. She, just made us use our intuition. It was just really nice. And just to be there with other people that had the same thoughts as you did felt really good. And you didn't feel outcast or like you had a devil's head or something.
Right. Yeah, it's nice to gather with people who don't look at you like you have three heads when you start talking about metaphysical things or,
exactly
something that you experienced that nobody else in the room experienced. So,
yeah. She had great classes, essential oil classes and things like that. So it's just, like I said, the energy is just really nice. Those are my experiences.
That's pretty cool though, Jared.
Yeah.
That's a nice experience.
Yeah, those were nice experiences, just with different people.
Yeah. I had an experience early on in my awareness that was, it made me question whether or not I really wanted to be a medium. So we were at a museum out in Germany. I don't know if I told this at the last roundtable.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But it was in a castle in Germany. And we're walking through, my family and I are walking through, and I hear this lady sobbing, like horrendous sobbing. And it took me a minute to realize that nobody else heard it. I was the only one that heard it. So I let my family go on to the next room. And we were in a room that had like ancient artifacts. And there were like, what do you call them, vials that they had unearthed. So there was this woman there that was from, I don't know what era. I mean, it looked like Ben-Hur clothing. That's all I can say. And it took a while for me to get her to tell me her story. But the long and the short is that she was married to a man who wanted to divorce her because he fell in love with someone else. And at that time, when the man divorced the woman, he divorced the whole family. So the three children that she had would have been destitute along with her. And she wasn't worried about herself, but she couldn't let that happen to her children. They would become fatherless and have no standing in the community. So she actually poisoned her husband. And she felt so guilty about doing it that she then took her own life.
Oh, wow.
And she felt that her penance for this was to stay with this vial that she had used to poison her husband. And, I tried to kind of talk her into, that she could move on. And my guides were very strict about that. They said, they have to ask for help. You can't talk them into something. They have to ask. So she was going nowhere. That was her hell. And that's what she chose. And that was a tough day because there was nothing I could do for this woman. Not a thing, except tell her story. That's all I can do. But it still makes me inside, like, just tears me to pieces that this is how she's going to spend eternity. It's awful. That to me is just awful.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's not a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Knowing things that, and there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It's going to be interesting if I make it to Germany on a trip and go in some of the castles, because when I went, the first time I went to the castles, that part of what I had was just shut down. I just asked for it to be shut down, and it was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went in 2002, I went into castles, but I felt energies there, but I still wasn't clear about everything that was going on, if that makes sense. So I kind of had that shut down too. So it's going to be interesting now, since my son's stationed over there, to see what it's going to be like going into some of those places now that I know what is actually going on, if that makes sense, because I didn't fully grasp what I had.
Right.
I knew it was something, but I was still struggling at that time with what's going on in my crazy type mentality. So, yeah. Do I need to be locked up in a nut ward somewhere?
Yeah, exactly.
Eastern State. Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Me.
You're so good looking.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah, well, my experience is, I've had a lot more since, I've joined the paranormal group, basically my experiences now are spirit coming to me.
Third eye.
Basically with whatever upcoming case is coming. Usually most of our cases are like loved ones, trying to get messages through. And I get an awful lot of them coming to me like weeks ahead of time. Like, I don't know who they're for until I get on the investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they, any time of the day. At nighttime, oh my goodness, the one I had was actually for one of the girls in the group. There was somebody standing at the end of the bed, and they grabbed my foot, and I could feel their big hand around my ankle, shaking my foot. And I thought it was my husband. I was getting ready to slap the crap out of him. And it turned out he wasn't even upstairs that night, and it was her brother had a message for her. I wrote it all down, turned around and said, okay, but next time, a better time of day, please. But just to be able to feel the hand, and it was a huge, hand around my ankle. Yeah, I was like, that was definitely different.
Oh, yeah.
So, but the experiences,
grab like that.
Yeah, the experiences over the years have been definitely they're different every time. Seeing things, hearing things, having things touch you, whatever. It's not always, just people's, with the group, because we have the SRT part of it, the special response team, which is a resolutions team, as you know, Geri.
Yeah.
I get those things that are very questionable come to my house before we get to a case. And they're basically trying to like scare me off. If they pop in long enough, turn around, make their presence, and they come here and try to pester me to keep me from going. But and I'm not the only one. A couple of people in the group, and Frank is one of them. He'll get visits and things like that. So
It's amazing though, isn't it? When they have that capability to do that.
yeah, it is.
I just find it fascinating. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it can be scary sometimes, but fascinating at the same time. I don't know how to explain that either.
Yeah, I mean, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have all kinds of, protections around the house and everything, but they have that strength to punch that hole in just long enough.
Yeah.
Turn around and get their point across, even though they can't stay in here because of the environment I make. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just always found that amazing how they sometimes come before you go on an investigation, or sometimes before I have a client that comes in for Reiki, I'll have a visit. And so I already know it. I don't know. I just find it all fascinating and just amazing.
It's amazing how they find you before you even know.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's true.
Yeah.
You have no clue who you're being visited by until you get on that investigation, or you run into somebody and say, "Oh, it's for you." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I'm doing, I do readings by Zoom a lot, and when or if they come to the house, my thing is water. I'm a water baby. I get into water and my energy just explodes. So when I'm showering, man, it's like, oh, could you wait?
Yeah.
Could you wait till they're
Space.
here? It's like, oh my goodness. And I had a big long talk with my guides about that, because they really like to just contact me when I'm showering. And not that I'm a prude or anything, but hey guys, I'm naked, and they're like,
Yeah.
we don't see the body, we see the energy. Don't worry about that. And I'm like, okay. Like, I really don't care if you see the body, but could you give me a minute? Give me a moment. But as far as nighttime, I shut it down completely at night.
Yeah.
My guides have 24/7 access, but the spirits do not, because they will not leave me alone if I don't close the gate and put up the bubble.
Yeah.
They just won't. And
Right.
I need sleep.
Oh yeah.
I definitely understand that one. Yeah. I have insomnia, so it's very hard for me shutting down. So I have some interesting things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Shayla has a question. Have you ever been ignoring or not using your abilities, only to have spirit show you signs that they are there, meaning you walk by a light and it starts to flicker?
Yep. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That's what I meant earlier when I said they can be very persistent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's something they want to deliver and you're not doing it, they will hound you.
Yeah, flicker a light.
Well, most of them respect boundaries, but there are some that they just feel that their message is too important and they have to be heard. And usually usually they were like that in life as well. So
I think a perfect example of that is one spirit that came to me at my old work. I worked in a school cafeteria. Okay. And I had a spirit who was following me around for about a week. It was a thin man. He had a plaid jacket on and almost like corduroy pants. He was kind of tall, and I could only see, his brown hair and his clothes, and I couldn't really see his face. And he came to the school quite often. I would turn around and he'd be standing there by one of the refrigerators or by the door. I saw him a couple times, at my house. Then my mother started seeing this figure, and she was telling me about it. I says, "Mom, that's the same one that's been following me around for a week." I couldn't figure out why, because he wasn't really talking. Then he scared the hell out of my cook. He turned around. He was starting to throw things around in the cafeteria in the morning, and I came in, and he turned all the burners on the stove. And my cook looks at me and he goes, "Why did you turn that on?" I said, "I didn't turn it on. I thought you did." And there was one burner that wasn't on yet, and all of a sudden the burner just turned on in front of us, and you have to push it in and turn it. And my cook put the pot down and walked out. He says, "No, no, 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 no." He says, "You brought spooks. You brought spooks." And I couldn't figure it out. And then one day I was watching the lady janitor we have, and she was talking to a friend of hers on the phone, and she seemed pretty desperate. I was putting out boxes, and she goes, "No, no, no, you gotta hold on." And I started putting two and two together that this spirit might be for somebody that she knows. That's the feeling I was getting. And you get that, wow, how do you walk up to people you barely know and say, "Excuse me, but I have a message for you," because you don't want them thinking you're strange, But he followed me around until I actually got the courage to go up to her and turn around and say, "Look, I know your friend has a problem." And I says, "I think I have somebody who needs to talk to her." And it turned out to be that this was her boyfriend, who was he was he was in an accident. He was paralyzed, but he could still get around. He could still drive a car and everything. He had a special van set up for him to drive with all the things on the hand, so he could use his hands to drive. But he couldn't take life anymore, and he killed himself.
Aww.
And she was having a hard time of it, and she was contemplating killing herself. And I ended up going to her house, and I was telling her what he had to say, that he didn't want her to do that. That he wanted her to go on. And I just couldn't understand why he kept showing me angel's wings. He just said, "I don't understand angel's wings on the back." I said, "It's not making any sense to me, but if it makes sense to you." And she started crying, and she goes, "Do you realize what you're sitting on?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't. I just sat down." I was sitting on his jacket that had angel's wings on the back of it. I said, "Well, that is his way of letting you know that he's talking to you, because I would have never known that, and I didn't know what I was sitting on." I said, "So this way it's actually him. This is your confirmation." But he talked her out of killing herself and moving on. And last I heard, she's happy. She met somebody else. She still, loves him in her way, but, he got his message across. But he bothered me for a long time because he didn't want her to kill herself.
Yeah.
Aww.
And scared the hell out of my workers. But it's amazing how he even knew how to go to my mom and show himself to her to get my attention. Which is just amazing how they can even figure that or do that.
I know. I think sometimes, like with my Reiki clients, I think the spirits set up the appointments. When they want to get messages across, they'll set the appointment. Because I'll have a person randomly out of the blue just, can I come in and see you, out of nowhere? And then when they get to the house, or sometimes before they even get to the house, I feel a presence. And I have I have a couple lamps downstairs, but one of them's a salt lamp. And if spirit comes through, it blinks to let me know that, hey, I want to talk. So I just think, like, I'm here, and I'll feel the presence. They don't always show themselves, but I'll feel that presence, and then they'll start showing little, like, beacons of numbers or baking. Food is a big one. I'll be like, "Did your mom make cookies?" I mean, I know it's a basic thing. It's well, I never made cookies, but most moms do. I don't. Like, if I was to break out a cookie sheet right now, Vicente and Victor would be like, "What the hell are you doing?" Because I wasn't the bake a cookie mom. I was a Betty Crocker, But yeah, it's I think they set those up, and they'll tell you when they set them up, once the person gets there and you're getting in tune to doing that Reiki on that person, and then they start saying, "Oh, I set this up, let them know that," and you're like, "She set this appointment up," and then they start doing that little beacon of things. And it's amazing because they don't know you.
Right.
You know, it's like they don't know
Yeah.
who you've never met them.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
this one followed me to work, knew where I worked, you know, and my mother and home, and it was just okay. I don't know who you're for, but you know, figure I'd come across it sooner or later. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a reading for two sisters, and again, very early on in doing readings, and I got this what I thought was like a caricature of an old lady, you know, and I'm describing this old woman to these two women, and all of a sudden they look at each other, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna tell me that I'm full of crap, and then they just looked at me and they're like, that's our grandmother, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Because really, it was literally fuzzy slippers, the whole thing, and I couldn't really understand her. And they're like, yeah, she died with dementia.
Oh.
So I was like, oh, all right. So once I was able to cut through the gobbledygook, you know, she really had a hard time expressing herself. So I told her just to show me pictures. And when she started showing me pictures, then we got the messages across. But it was like, you know, as I'm saying this, and not so much now, but at that point, I really had no clue what the hell I was doing. And, you know, I'm like, this can't be real. This, you know, this must be something I saw sometime in a cartoon or, you know, something like that. And when they said, yeah, that's grandma, I was floored. I really was. And I'm glad that it worked, but I was pretty sure I was just making crap up in my head, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, crazy.
yeah, you know, it's hard to walk up to somebody when you know it's a message for them, and you don't know this person from Adam, and you're just, you know, you have spirit in your ear, and you don't want to ignore them, and you want to respect the fact that you know they have a message, but you don't want people looking at you like you're nuts. You know, like get out of my face, you're crazy. You know. But it doesn't work out that way. Usually it's like, oh my God, you know, and they're so happy and grateful that they got the message because in their own way, they needed to heal. They needed to hear them one more time so that they can move on and heal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Very true.
Yeah, the one thing that happened that really and truly made me believe in all this stuff was.
Wait, hold on, Jerry. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard them.
Don't let it get out. Yeah, but the one thing that made me truly start believing in all this stuff is one night Jerry and I were in the manor house, and she had for lack of a better term, a boyfriend visitor. And he'd been following her around and making himself present. And this one night, he actually channeled into her, and he was just being a real asshole. And I got him to leave out of her, and I said a few things I probably shouldn't have said, but then I got punched in the back of the head.
Oh.
And so that it didn't scare me none. It pissed me off. It didn't scare me. But that's the one thing that got me to believe in this stuff. Because before I was, as Jerry says, I was an open-minded skeptic.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing that really happened that got me believing.
Well, there's so much fake crap out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's so much, you know, people watch the paranormal shows and they think that this stuff is real, and it's just like, you know, so much of what actually happens you can't see, you know, like we know as psychic mediums, it's mostly internal for us. It's things that get sent to us that we we're like conduits. We're the empty vessel they use to get the message out. And shows want to make it seem like we're having conversations with and that's not the way it is at all. We don't, like Tina said, I couldn't make out his face. There's a lot of times you can't make out features. There's a lot of times that they don't even remember what their name was. So, it's really hard to fight against what the media puts out.
Right.
People want to be like, show me where they are in the room. I can't, because they're in this room up here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is like you said with the names. A lot of times I will not get names.
Me too.
Nope.
And sometimes I will get the features of what they look like, and sometimes I don't.
Right.
Or they'll give me like Geri said, they'll show you signs of things that like the baking and like different cars or something stupid like that. Now there was time.
Taste. Yeah.
There was one time that because I studied under a woman to help bring it out.
Hey, Sandy.
Her name was Marissa Pell. And when I took the classes, we had a graduation. Our graduation was that we had to get up on stage and we had to do readings for an audience of 100 people. So I got up on stage, and you know how they can kind of like piggyback off each other? So I was picking up on two different people in the audience, but more towards the one than the other. And I explained to them, listen, because it might make sense for both of you. But they were showing me a white car and doing donuts in the parking lot, things like that. And it turned out to be the girl sitting there with her boyfriend. The guy was the best friend, and the girl was kid sister. I turned around and said, well, I don't understand. And he kind of did it jokingly. He turned around because they started dating each other. I didn't know that. I turned around and he says, he wants to know what's going on with you two because he ain't liking it. Yeah. And they turned around. They both like, oh my God, And I said, oh, relax. He says, you're good, bro. He says he's very happy that you're with his sister, and he trusts you and he knows this should be in good hands. And they were like relieved. And then I turned around and told him, I said, but the only thing he keeps showing me is I don't understand the rose. I says, what's with the rose? The big, beautiful red rose. And they both stood up and they had memorial tattoos on their arms for him. And they each had a big, beautiful red rose on their arm.
There you go.
But that's what the white car and everything was what he used to do. He used to go into the parking lot and do donuts. That's how they knew it was him. But some of the stuff kind of resonated for the other couple too. So they got bits and pieces out of that. So they were hearing from their loved one also. And it was interesting. I mean, I didn't think I'd ever be able to stand in front of 100 people and do a reading, but I did it.
It's surprising what you can do, right?
Right?
What happens? Yeah.
Definitely.
It's surprising what you can do when you allow it to happen.
Yeah, that's true. When you allow it to happen,
yeah.
Just let it flow. Let your metaphysical fairy flow.
That's right. Just let your freak show out, baby.
But when they want to get a message across, they will find you. They will follow you. I just had one of our members come up to me because he's starting to become a little bit more intuitive. And he says, I have a question. And I said, what's that? He goes, how do they come to you? I said, well, where do I start?
Yeah, exactly.
I said, it's many different ways. I said, you don't necessarily hear their voice because you don't know what they sound like. It's a total stranger. You don't know their voice. I said, you might hear like your own voice in your head or just a generic voice. Right. I said, and it's more of a telepathy to me. And sometimes, not always, I said, I don't always physically hear. Sometimes they actually show me words where I'm reading like a ticker tape.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The pictures, the smells, you know.
The attitude. Don't forget the attitude.
The attitude, yes.
Letters,
You get their emotions, you get their happiness, their sadness, their pain. And that all comes flooding through one way or another. And I said, it depends on who it is, what kind of message they have, and how they're able to communicate with you, because it's not one specific, oh, look, they're just talking in my ear. And that's what a lot of people think, but it's not. It really isn't. It's
not
very
a conversation like we're having. And I think that's what's frustrating is when you're doing readings, people think that you're having a full-blown conversation like we're talking now, and it's it's not like that. It's like little pieces to a puzzle, and sometimes you got to sit down and figure it out. And then sometimes I get people that it doesn't resonate with them at the time. It's almost like pulling teeth. And I'm like, listen, if it doesn't resonate with you right now, I guarantee you a year or so from now it will, and you'll be writing me back, because that never fails. They'll send stuff that like a red rose or something and they're like, I don't know what that means. And I'm like, I don't know either, but if I don't give you the message, I got to listen to muffled music all night and I don't feel like doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
This is your message, and if you believe it, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the point I'm at.
And you have to trust yourself in what because a lot of times you're thinking, am I just thinking this to think this? And and I'm still stuck on that sometimes. Should I say this? Should I not say this? But like I was taught, it's word vomit. Just bring it out. It's not the message isn't for me. The message is for them, whether it makes sense for them or not. Word vomit it out, and then sometimes they say things I'm like, oh my God, I can't say that.
Yep. I'm like, that's so inappropriate.
I know. I said, this is just like so wrong. But when you say it, they start laughing and say, yep, that's them. So, you come around like.
Recently with someone.
Yep.
Oh my God. And they were like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so sorry if I offended you. And they're like, no, that's exactly what they would say.
But the best thing though is when you do it, and it's the feeling you get of helping somebody heal.
Right.
It's like, okay, once it's all over and done with, you're like, oh, that took a lot of energy. But it's them feeling, you can feel them, like open up and start to heal. Because in the beginning, you can feel their pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the end, I always say I hate when I make them cry. I really do, because you always make them cry.
Yeah.
But Tina, you don't make them cry.
Right.
You're not making them cry.
No, it's their loved ones that's bringing the message, And it's like I kept saying, oh, they're crying, but it's a good cry, and I know they're healing from it, So.
Yeah. I always carry tissues because you know what's going to happen.
Yes, it is.
And if it's not them crying, it's you crying, because you're getting the feelings from that person.
And the other thing that I find is a lot of the times when I'm doing readings, I won't remember what I tell people because it's not for me.
No, it's not for me. I don't. There's a lot of times I don't remember either.
Something that pertains to me that my guides want me to remember, then I'll remember it. But a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I do have clients who come back and they're like, "Remember what you said last time?" And you're like, "No."
I'll make them record.
Why don't you remind me? Because I don't remember what I said last time.
No.
And
I have
and then they tell you, and you're like, "Oh, cool! I'm glad that happened." But you have to remember that I didn't say that. That wasn't me saying that. That was coming through me, and that was coming from your loved one, from a guide of yours, from it could have even been coming from your higher self that you weren't listening to, so they used me to slap you in the face with it. You know what I mean? It all depends on what that person needs and what their energy is pumping out. And you know as well as I do, if somebody's not ready to hear something, they will not receive it.
No, they won't.
No. Have you guys ever had a spirit come to you and show you for like situations in your life you've been through that you need to explain to that person because that's what they're going through?
Yes.
That happens quite often, doesn't it? And you've been through that, been there, done that. Yeah. But you have to explain your situation in order for them to understand what the spirit wants to explain to them. I have that quite often. I say, okay, they're showing me this part of my life, so I got to explain this to you. This is what happened to me, you know? Yeah.
I find I do a lot of readings for people who have similar backgrounds. They've come from abuse. They've gone through they've gone through addiction. You know, so I think that universe puts us together like that because it's really hard. Even though we're all empaths, it's really hard to be empathic on something you have not yet experienced. If that makes any sense.
Very true. Yeah. I most definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you can feel it, I mean, it kicks your ass.
Yes.
Yeah. It really does. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the tough ones. Those are the ones that, you know, it's like, I need to go lie down.
Yeah.
I need to go lie down after this. Yeah.
Yeah. Take a nap.
Yeah.
Take a nap only to have more stuff come through here, and then you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be taking a nap.
You have one that's so bad, the next day you have a psychic hangover.
Or when you get around people with you know, when you go, because I go to paracons and stuff, and you can get around these people, and it's within like 5-10 minutes, you feel like you're drunk off your ass because there's so much energy running around, and you're like, do I go here? Do I go there? And then you start talking to people, and they're looking at you like, what's going on? You're like, yeah, I think I'm a little overwhelmed. You know, just a little bit.
Is a psychic hangover anything like a paranormal hangover?
Yes.
You're breaking up, all of you. I'm sorry, so I don't know where I'm going.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of breakup.
Sorry.
That's okay.
David Flowers had the question: Is a psychic hangover the same as a paranormal?
Yeah, it's all energy related.
And it pretty much so is, yes. It's that energy drain, just, I don't know, your head just doesn't feel right, you know, it takes you, a while to get back, you know.
Oh, I think the perfect word for it is discombobulated.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You're just not yourself.
Discombobulated. Yeah.
Because there are times when I'll get what I call a paranormal hangover, and it feels like a real hangover. You got the headache, sick at the stomach, everything.
Yeah, yeah.
That depends on the energy around too. I mean, you know.
Well, you're probably I would say that's more from dark energy than from.
Yeah, you little metaphysical fairy. I told
you. Yeah, I mean, because I've been around some of that dark stuff, and it's that that is.
Thanks, Sandy.
It's a feeling that I really, I don't want to be around again, but unfortunately, it comes with the territory, especially when you're in the paranormal field.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I can't wait to talk to you. Oh my God. Well, actually, both of you.
Yeah.
Yep. I can tell you some things. Trust me.
Yeah, with my vertigo incidents that I had, I think it's going to be going on 3 years now. It's different. It's when spirit comes to me, it's different now. I get real dizzy, whereas before I didn't have that. So it's and it's funny because when we were doing the tour one time, this little girl walked up to me and she's like, "Do you feel dizzy? Is it normal to feel dizzy?" And I was like, not really, and I said, that's normally when something is around you. And she was really serious. So I could tell by looking at her that she was an empath just by her aura colors. And, you can't tell a child that because it's somebody's kid. I didn't want to do anything like that, but I was like, oh, Nelly, this one's gonna,
this one's in for it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So.
It's amazing how the children shine. That's just the way I'm going to put it. They just shine, and they shine through their parents. Like when I do readings on people, and their kids shine through them, and it's so freaking cool. And it's hard to describe that to people who've never witnessed it, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe. And they're like, how do you know? It's like, and that's the other thing. People are like, how do you know what you know? I don't know. I have no clue how I know what I know. I don't know. I don't know. And then and like you said, Tina, when somebody says, well, how do they come to you? Oh, I don't know. It's, this isn't something you can actually teach. You can guide people, but you can't teach them,
Mm-hmm.
Right. You can give them techniques to help develop it. You can give them exercises, things like that. Because for our paranormal group, I will do that for the people in the group if they're interested, because everybody has a little bit of that in them.
Absolutely.
It's if they want to choose to develop it or not. Okay.
Yep.
And those that choose to really want to try to move on to it, I take what I was taught and I show them. It's one of the classes. Actually, it's coming up soon, in a couple weeks, and I'll do my intuitive class while my friend Tammy does the Reiki. But it's. I told him, I said, I can only show you, and you need to practice.
Yeah.
And then every day you mark down. Right. Every day you mark down in the book how much closer you got to guessing that time on the wall without looking at it. How many times, did you hear something, like in a room full of all kinds of stuff going on where you could focus in on that one little pinpoint of the clock ticking or something. I tried to teach them how to focus to listen. Because if you don't pay attention to what you're hearing, then you're never going to get the message.
Right. Exactly. Agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
Stephanie, when did you realize you had a gift? I'm just curious. And then Tina, I want to ask you the same thing. I'm curious.
Oh, who were you asking? I'm sorry.
Stephanie.
Okay. When did I that's a funny question. I was actually 54 years old. So it was 9 years ago when I was told by 3 other psychic mediums that I was a psychic medium, and I told them they were wrong. Yeah.
You're wrong.
Yeah. And then I told them I'm too old to start this. So yeah, I did it. I apparently was doing it all my life, but I just, like Geri said, I thought I was nuts. I thought I was crazy. I thought, okay, you talk to yourself, you talk yourself into seeing things, you talk yourself into hearing things. I was told I was very imaginative. I was told I was a liar. I was called Sarah Bernhardt. I was very, very dramatic. And you get told that enough when you're a child. That's what you believe. That becomes your reality.
Right.
And that was my reality for a long time.
I understand that one. Yep. How about you, Tina? I'm curious.
4 years old. I woke up after taking my bath and getting ready to go to bed. We were watching TV, I remember. And I had this very vivid dream of this man turn around telling me he was dead and he needed to talk to my parents, but he couldn't get them. So I woke up screaming, Douglas is dead. Douglas is my cousin, who's, about my age. But I was screaming Douglas was dead. And my father got so mad at me, he told me to go to bed. And my mother got mad at him, and she went to bed. Everybody went to bed because my dad was hollering. The next day, we come to find out that my Uncle Dean died, which was my father's brother. And at the time, I was telling my father that Douglas was dead and that, you need to talk to somebody. My Uncle Dean was the one telling me that he was dead and that my father needed to get hold of my grandparents. but the phone was off the hook, so they couldn't call us. They ended up calling my grandmother the next day to tell my mother. And it was the same time that I told them it was dead. Now, I remember that story, so that's why I know that and it was I could still remember it to this day because it was so vivid, even though I was so young. But after that, many things after that happened. And I believe I got it from, it's inherited because my mother always, she always knew things. She always saw things, whatnot. So I grew up with it, and it was normal. To see a black shadow walk through your room was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. See that?
Yeah. So it's like, okay, whatever. It's like, okay, bye. So it's normal to an extent where people would probably think, if I told them back then, they probably would have locked me up. Like my father, right away, he, to him, it spooked him out, that my mother and I could do that. He always called us the whatnot, which is in his language, witches. So, but he respected it in a way because he knew we could do, after a while, he knew what we could do, about the spirit. So, yeah. So 4 years old is when it started.
6 years old. Yeah. Started, and it may have happened earlier than that. I just didn't realize what was going on. Of course, you don't really at that age, but just 6 years old, I started having this. Everybody called it an imaginary friend, but it wasn't an imaginary friend.
Oh my God. Didn't you hate hearing that as a kid?
Just an imaginary. It's just in your imagination. You're making that up. And
right?
Yeah, we used to stay at this farm because we had 2 different places. We had the house in the city, and then we had a cottage in the country. And so on the weekends, my dad would take us to this farm to do some work because he felt that we needed to learn the value of hard work. So he would put us to work on our friend's farm. They had 16 kids, and we would stay overnight because we would have to go to Saluda Baptist Church the next day, put on choir robes and sing in the choir. That is what we had to do. But the day before that, we would be working in the fields, picking weeds at this farm because we felt that was important. But anyway, their house had a spirit in it, Miss Annie, and you could hear her walking up the steps, and she did not like music. She didn't like radio music. So when really things started to come to fruition with me, and when I was starting to figure things out, is when I turned the radio up and she turned it down. I turned it up, she turned it down, and then when I went to go turn it up again, she smacked me.
That
was my first hit like that. And then another incident there, I was sleeping, but I heard my nickname Deanie because all people that are close to me, like my mom, my sister, my brother, they call me Deanie. They don't call me Geri. They call me Deanie. And this spirit, I heard Deanie as if it was like Miss Creech's voice because she knew me as Deanie too. And so I went downstairs. There was nobody there. And then I looked out the window and 2 lights came up the driveway and they dissipated. So that's just things would happen with that, and it just was wild. So like I said, I'm sure it started earlier, but you remember that first remembrance of everything.
And it's been a roller coaster ever since.
Yeah, and mine shut off for a while because it scared me because I had began to see things that were happening in the future before they happened. And that scared me. And I saw a full-blown accident happen before I saw it happen. And then it happened in front of me. And I remember going back home and just crying and saying, I don't want this. Please take it away from me. I don't want this.
Yeah.
I don't want any of it. And it was taken away. The whole thing, spirit, all of it, it went away. And then when I moved back to Virginia, I lived in Georgia. I moved back into Virginia in 1999, and a close friend of our family's passed away, and I went to the funeral and I touched his hand. I was like, all right, Pop, I'll see you. I'll see you in the future. And I had never touched a hand, but I just felt that need to do that. And when I did, his body popped out beside me, and he was like, I need you to write this message. And I was like, oh my God. And it went from there. It was like it never left.
Yeah.
And it came flooding, and I felt like I was nuts. I felt like I didn't know what to do. It was so overwhelming. And he's standing by my bed, like the person in Ghost, 99 bottles of beer on the wall.
On the wall. Yeah.
What is going on here? And it just went from there. It cut back on like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you have that and you have your guides and everything, your loved ones helping you out. Just last week, coming home from an investigation, I was so tuned in that all of a sudden I'm driving, and it's late at night, and I get to this one section and I hear "watch for deer," and I'm on the highway, So I'm like, I never really see too many deer, Next thing you know, no further, I slowed down. Maybe I get slightly around this corner, and there it is, right in the center of the street, man. I was like, wow. But thanks to Spirit, I avoided that deer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ladies, we're almost time to wrap things up.
All right.
Our time flew by so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really did.
Sure.
The hour flies by so fast. I'm just amazed at it. But that's what happens when you have good topics that you're talking about. Good gracious. Now I got to do a part 2.
There's so many more stories you could go on with.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it helps people out a lot, because I think that people misunderstand, like you said, Stephanie, with the TV shows out there, people really misunderstand psychics, and that everybody has different gifts too. They're not all the same.
Right.
So I like doing the psychic roundtable talk, because it helps people to understand things better, and with the experiences. And I just think people need to hear that. And there are still people out there suffering, like that feeling of being alone, and they don't understand.
They're nuts.
They're not.
They're nuts.
Yeah. And they're not, and they're not alone.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think it's important to put it out there. So if y'all want to, I know we're booked through when, David, all the way through December. Yeah. So probably in January, I'd like to do another show on that, on like
hit me up, babe. No problem.
Roundtable. Yeah,
yeah.
Because it's putting information out there and helping people too.
Yeah.
And that's what we're supposed to do.
Exactly.
My favorite thing, ladies, real fast though, is when people turn around and say you give them something or say something or know something that only they know and the other person, the spirit, knows. And so, how do you know that? And I was like, I don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. This is your confirmation. This is how they're telling you it's them. It's because you and they know it. How would I know it? Oh, you Googled it. How would I Google that you both had tattoo roses? That's impossible, please, Yeah. So people don't understand that, and they think that you're fake and phony and whatnot. But I can't pull things out of my mind, just to turn around and say, oh yeah, you just got Marima's tattoos, or he used to do donuts in the car. Those things are real, and people don't understand it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And when people tell me, "Oh my God, you're so good," it's like, no, I'm not.
They're spirit talking, not me.
They know. I have no clue, and I don't know how they get it through, but they do. So they're amazing. I'm not amazing. I just allow it to happen.
That's why I always say it's not me. It's the gift I was given, and I'm only doing the work that the Creator asked me to do.
Absolutely.
True words.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate y'all coming on, and I appreciate everybody tuning in to Vibe Time with Geri. We try to keep it at 9 too, because how I download everything.
Yeah.
Very picky how I download everything. But anyway, next week we have Haunted MD, correct?
Yes.
Haunted MD is coming on, and we are going to be talking about afterlife. That's next week's show. It's going to be very interesting talking to Haunted MD. So anyway, you guys tune in next week to Vibe Time with Geri, and I'll see you then. Thanks for everybody's support. Y'all have a
Good
great
night.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
night.
you.